This is Decentral Lens, distilling the crypto news you need to know and why.
What's up, everybody? Blutoshi and Disco here for a special breaking update. The first we've ever done. This is kind of exciting, Disco. But Microsoft is considering adding Bitcoin to its balance sheet. This news just came out. What do you think about that?
I think it's what we've been talking about for so long. We've been saying, when are they going to wake up? When are the companies going to start using all this extra cash that's sitting there? It ties into what we talked about earlier with interest rates and the lack of return and everything. So it seems like a no-brainer, and it looks like it's going to be decided on December 10th. So this is pretty quick.
You know how much cash they have on hand, Disco?
No.
484 billion. That's like a third of Bitcoin's market cap. Now they're considering putting it on the balance sheet, but there's more to the story. So let's dig right in. Let's check this out. So if I share my screen, so broken by Macroscope 17, he basically geniusly scoped the proxy statement, which came out this afternoon, and probably had some sort of a filter on to filter all these proxy statements and 10Ks from these corporations to find out who's just mentioning crypto or Bitcoin, or he just scoured it. But thank you, Macroscope, for finding this. But basically what he found is there is a proxy vote for shareholders, and wouldn't you know it, Boomer Blutoshi in some of his accounts. I mean, dude, if you have any sort of retirement account for any company you've ever worked for,
yeah,
I can guarantee Microsoft is like 13% of your portfolio. That's how much every fund and ETF is like crammed in these like 5 or 6 or 7 FANG companies. So they're going to get a vote. I never do proxy votes because it doesn't matter. But you know what? Even if my vote doesn't matter, I'm voting on this one. I'm voting yes.
We're getting the vote out on this no matter what. It's incredible. So they filtered it down to find, like, on page 78 to 79 of this, that this was actually happening and was in there. That's incredible.
Yeah. So check this out. So here's the proxy statement. So on page 78 and 79, Bitcoin diversification assessment. And I will say, go ahead and read this, folks. Follow Macroscope 17 and read the whole thing, and he's got a link in there. But you got to check this out. But basically the whole thing is like, it's everything we've been talking about. The Microsoft folks are saying, like, inflation, they're saying, it peaked at 9%, but those are fake numbers because the CPI is a terrible way to measure it, in their words, which is a remarkably poor and corrupt measure of inflation. This is what the second biggest company in the world saying this, is 5%, and then peaking at 9.1% in June of 22, right after COVID ended. And they're saying it could be double, which, you and I, who shop for our kids every once in a while at Costco, see that bill inflate with the same type of lunch stuff. And it was definitely like 20, 30, 40% during COVID. So they're acknowledging, Disco, throughout this whole thing that basically inflation has been rampant and that they might need to diversify. And so this whole thing, you got to read this whole paragraph. They go into it in detail, but then at the end on the next page, I hate to burst your bubble, but they recommend a vote against proposed for the following reasons. And I'll just read the last line. Microsoft has a strong and appropriate process in place to manage and diversify its corporate treasury for the long-term benefit of shareholders, and this requested public assessment is unwarranted. So they literally laid out why it was so important, and then the board negated it. Now, let's dig a little deeper, and let's look at the go ahead, Disco. Please.
Oh, it's just like, why put it out there? And then, you look at who are the folks that are saying not to do it. And, it's interesting just because, it was like yesterday, right? Paul Tudor Jones was out there kind of, ringing the bell and sounding the alarm on, hey, don't think this, soft landing is as soft as it's going to be. And don't think inflation is tamed as it's going to be. After the election, we're looking at increased spending regardless of the outcome. And maybe you're seeing some of these huge, you're talking FANG stocks now really getting into this. And once that happens, and once it does get approved by whatever board, or when it does, that kind of brings all of the theses we've ever had about, dude, pretty soon the toothpaste is out of the tube. What the hell are we going to do? How are we going to buy Bitcoin for ourselves? So we're looking, this is happening in real time. It's just phenomenally interesting.
Yeah, no, it is interesting. So let's take a look at the makeup of the board. Because remember, somebody on this board put on, or somebody recommended, or employees, or somebody got it
Yeah.
on the proxy ballot to be voted on. You're looking at this list right away. You think, like, okay, tech billionaire and who used to work under Elon, part of the PayPal mafia, Reid Hoffman, is probably that guy. I don't know Charlie Scharf, CEO and president of Wells Fargo. Guessing it's not him, Disco. Also, Mark Mason, chief financial officer, Citi. Guessing it's not him. But so Reid or one of these folks proposed it, and the board has also voted against it. Another one that's interesting, Penny Pritzker, that last name
Right.
should sound familiar, especially if you're from Illinois, because they own the entire state, and her brother from the billionaire Pritzker family, that is her brother. So Penny is a successful entrepreneur. I don't know if it was with the Pritzker money or not. I suspect it probably was. I suspect favors were given, but
It didn't hurt.
no, here's the board. So I was expecting it, this would have been an even better breaking story if everybody was complete silverback. But you got some gray whiskers here, but Blue Toshi hasn't shaved in a while. He's got gray whiskers, so that's not even the worst thing. You figure Reed's at least crypto knowledgeable. Stanton, John Stanton, probably not. But this is the board that voted against. I'll be really curious if a groundswell doesn't happen even within Microsoft. But it's just mind-boggling to me that they've already voted against it. They've already recommended to vote against it. So the proxy will decide. So the biggest shareholders, and there's some whales that will be able to control this vote, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, but the fact it's even getting on there and it's having its day in court, like what was the potential allocation? Is that known yet?
Of no, this is just for the prospect of
Like the
considering.
concept?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
It's just for the concept of considering Bitcoin. So it's a step in the right direction, but you're looking at the 10 or 12 faces right here who are already recommending not to doing it. I'm guessing as we dig deeper in this story in the next few days that this was not a unanimous decision. I see a little youth on this board, probably some smart folks. I'm guessing it's not the Wells Fargo and the Citibank guys. Like, you just see a pattern here with like, Hugh Johnson, senior executive vice president, chief financial officer, Walt Disney Company. Like, you've got the entrenched folks, basically the companies that have emerged from World War II, the baby boomer generation, to, and the banks, obviously Wells Fargo has been around since late 1800s, and Citi too. Like, you've got the entrenched players voting no. Of course they're going to vote no, but this would be so monumentous for Microsoft. And by the way, Disco, what I forgot to
Yeah.
mention is that let me go back to the thing. It's super small here. They actually mention MicroStrategy and how MicroStrategy actually outpaced them for that time period. So like the person who actually wrote the vote for the proxy definitely was knowledgeable, and their whole positioning was like, inflation isn't 5 to 9%, it's 10 to like 35%. We can't just be in bonds and like government treasuries because inflation is growing faster. I mean, it is literally the 3-paragraph playbook of how you and I would have written it. So just
Yeah.
because the board recommended against it, that just means, probably it was 7-5, or maybe this is more of a silverback crowd and more banking Walt Disney, and it was like 12-2, but I don't think it was 10-2. I don't think it was 12-0, Disco.
Yeah, but don't you think that this also kind of, is a sounding alarm for FOMO, for the, fangs, or whatever you want to call it? We've been talking about it forever. Like, who's going to be, kind of take the MicroStrategy model and incorporate it, I hate to say Web 2 giants, but, you're going to start seeing this more and more. I think that this is just a precursor, and we're eventually going to see massive FOMO from massive companies with a hell of a lot of money on their balance sheet, and they're going to be looking at it. They're going to be comparing. They're going to be, comparing their results and being like, dude, we can't miss out on this. So again, retail guys, if you need if you need an inspiration or a motivation to get in the game, this is it couldn't be more clear.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one last shot before we move on to the next breaking story and then wrap it up. These are the 12 people. Remember, this is not going to be the board forever. And just remember, Vanguard, that CEO unilaterally was like, nope, we're not honoring ETFs. You're not allowed to buy the ETFs. And look what happened to him. He got removed within months. So even if this is a vote no, this again, like slowly, suddenly, all at once, like eventually these are going to be replaced. There's already a couple of young people in here, but more and more young people and more progressive people who are just like, this just makes fiscal sense. And going back to the proxy, I keep going back to it, but they said, even if it's just like 1%, so it was well laid out. And they're like, even if it's a little, $484 billion. So that's $4.84 billion would be 1%. Like that, think about how much if they voted yes, really, if they were smart, they'd do it, then vote yes, because once they do it, guess who's front running the big juggernaut? Blue Toshi is going to get in there and so is Disco, and we're going to beat him again. Like, but 4 billion out of 484 billion, like why Apple and Netflix and all the FANG stocks and any company with money isn't doing this is ridiculous. And this proxy acknowledges MicroStrategy and how they outperformed Microsoft. And in their words, at a fraction of doing anything. They just beat them because they hold Bitcoin in the treasury. They didn't beat them because they outperformed on services and selling, subscriptions to Microsoft 365 and Excel. It's because MicroStrategy has the Bitcoin standard already baked in.
Yeah. And now these, you kind of have the big NASDAQ stalwarts, right? Who are the ones that have access to the most, cash on hand, and they're going to be competing against each other. And the results are going to be competing on how well you did on the maximization of your capital. And now that you have, the MicroStrategy playbook being read and digested and understood, that will be a new kind of, okay, well, let's see how the results, how did they do on that line? And they're not going to want to be the ones that are behind the game. So, again, it's not going to happen necessarily December 10th. Who knows? Maybe crazier things can happen. We've seen that recently, but it does indicate that this is breaking through to the right people in the largest companies to see some of the significant potential uptick that we've been clamoring about. We even asked today, like, when are we going to see this happen? Well, possibly sooner than we thought.
Yeah. And before we move on, let's just look at Apple's board of directors. What we should do in our next full length show, we'll just go through every FANG and we'll look at the board of directors. Already I'm getting a vibe here that's definitely like this Craig Federighi guy. He's been on that stage with his black turtleneck, like shilling. I don't know if he's the OS guy or he's the software guy. So like these guys don't see it. Just don't see it. This does not look like a super diverse group, and it looks a little aged, and I'm guessing these pictures are not from a week ago either. So, all right. So Apple, so maybe we just need the changing of the guard from old to young, at least get more Gen Xers in there, and heaven forbid go down to the millennials and the Gen Zs. So, it's interesting. We'll keep you guys appraised, but there's actually two crazy things. The second one's much shorter, but thanks for joining everybody. This is kind of fun. The next breaking story is that apparently, thank you to Arkham, they are just on it, but the U.S. government, an ETH wallet that was, I believe, tied in with Aave got hacked for $20 million. At first, Arkham was just like, hey, there's funds moving. Like, here's 1.2 million, here's 4 million, here's 5.4 million. And all of a sudden, like they're moving. Now they're getting like laundered around. But Uncle Sam, I thought at first this was the big Bitcoin stash they have. I'm like, oh my God, that's billions and billions of dollars. This is just 20 million. But I don't know, Disco. This is not good optics if your government can't even hold on to 20 million bucks that they probably confiscated from someone overseas.
Yeah, no, it's not a good look, and it makes you just yeah, it makes you understand how things are just, how, and I know this may sound cliche, but you're starting to see the transparency of the blockchain come into, day to day life. And we haven't been able to track, government wallets before and know where everything's going. So I just think it's kind of a indicator or precursor to, what we're going to be able to kind of understand on what's really happening. I've had no idea what's going on with, billions of dollars for wherever it's moved or whatever's happening. And the fact that this can happen in real time, it's going to definitely change the game in terms of how, all the dollars are spent and tracked.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just funny because we did our normally recorded show, what, 3 or 4 hours ago. You were working on getting all the, all the behind the scenes shoveling we have to do to get the clips out. But then two huge stories break now. So we're gonna try and be here when we can, and with a reasonable
Yeah.
effort. But like I don't know, Disco. In some ways, this is kind of more exciting, just like uncovering stuff, or obviously in this case, Arkham and Macroscope are uncovering this great stuff, and Bitcoin Magazine's always good at this, and Bitcoin Archives, but like it's fun to talk about things as they're kind of happening and developing and kind of where they're going. But this definitely is not a good
Yeah.
look for the U.S. government and safeguarding really anything.
Yeah. And I suspect, especially over the next couple of weeks, the news cycle is going to be accelerated. So there'll be a lot of things that will come up that we may want to respond to in real time. So I let's stay tuned. Let's keep informed, and we'll try to share with you whatever we uncover as soon as we uncover it.
Yeah, absolutely. So everything said here, guys, was not financial advice. What else do I say, Disco? It wasn't financial advice. And
Entertainment purposes only. Be careful. Do your own research. Don't invest more than you can afford to lose.
right. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.
Yeah.